You've probably heard of vitamin D, right? The sunshine vitamin. We all know it's good for our bones. But what if I told you it holds a much deeper secret? A powerful role in commanding our body's own defense system. Today, we're going to unravel the really fascinating and frankly vital link between vitamin D and the rise of autoimmune diseases. I mean, think about it. How can something our bodies literally make from sunlight have any real influence on complex conditions like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus? Well, it turns out the connection is way more intimate than we ever thought, and it might just change how you think about this humble vitamin forever. Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by looking at two massive health trends that seem to be on a collision course. Then we're going to dive right into the cool science of how vitamin D actually talks to our immune cells. After that, we'll connect the dots to specific autoimmune diseases. And finally, we'll tackle the big question, can supplements really do anything to help? So our story really begins with these two parallel trends that researchers just find impossible to ignore. On the one hand, you have this steady, significant rise in autoimmune diseases, and on the other, you have a massive global deficiency in vitamin D. Is that just a coincidence? Well, the evidence is really starting to suggest that it's probably not. And, calling it a modern pandemic isn't some over-the-top exaggeration. This deficiency is affecting people all over the world, especially as more and more of us spend our lives indoors. This really sets the stage for a potential domino effect on all sorts of other widespread health issues. Okay, this next part is maybe the most important mindset shift you can make. We really have to stop thinking of vitamin D as just a vitamin. It's actually a steroid hormone. And just like other hormones, it sends these incredibly powerful signals all throughout the body. And you know who its main audience is? The immune system. This simple reframing is the key to understanding, well, everything that follows. All right. So vitamin D is this hormone that's talking to our immune system. What's it actually saying? The best way to think about it is like a thermostat. It's not just an on-off switch. It modulates the response. It dials things up when we need to fight an infection, but, and this is absolutely crucial, it dials things back down to prevent the system from overheating and attacking our own body. And this is where it gets really cool. Vitamin D plays this fascinating dual role. On one hand, it boosts our innate immunity. Those are the frontline soldiers that fight off germs. But at the exact same time, it pumps the brakes on our adaptive immunity. Those are the special forces that in autoimmune diseases can go rogue and spiral out of control. It's enhancing one while taming the other. This balancing act is its superpower. And its influence is just massive. All of these major players, the generals, the soldiers, the intelligence officers of our immune army, they all have something called vitamin D receptors, or VDRs. Think of it like a dedicated docking station, just waiting for vitamin D's hormonal signal. It's a direct line of communication to the highest levels of immune command. So how does this play out in practice? Well, it's a chain of command. Vitamin D first acts on these things called dendritic cells. They're the immune system's intelligence gatherers. It influences them to become what's called tolerogenic, which is really just a fancy way of saying they learn to chill out and tolerate our own body's tissues. These calmer cells then go and instruct the aggressive T cells to stand down, which reduces the very inflammation that drives autoimmunity. Okay, so that's the science, the nitty-gritty stuff happening in our cells. But what does it actually look like in the real world? What happens when this elegant, finely tuned system doesn't have enough vitamin D to function properly? Well, this is where deficiency meets disease. As you can see, vitamin D deficiency isn't just a side note. It sits right in the middle of this whole web of autoimmune conditions. Everything from rheumatoid arthritis and lupus to inflammatory bowel disease. This isn't just one or two random connections. It's a widespread pattern that researchers are seeing again and again and again. Let's just take rheumatoid arthritis, for example. The data here is pretty darn compelling. We see that a deficiency is a potential risk factor for even developing the disease in the first place. And for people who already have it, there's often an inverse relationship. Basically, as vitamin D levels go down, disease activity and the symptoms that patients report often go up. And you know what? It's a remarkably similar story with lupus. Lower vitamin D levels correlate with higher disease activity, and some of the numbers are just jaw-dropping. One study found that a staggering 96% of the patients they looked at had insufficient vitamin D. 96%. I mean, that's almost everyone in the study. So naturally, all of this leads to the million-dollar question, right? If low vitamin D is so clearly linked to these diseases, can taking supplements actually help? This is where the science gets a little more complicated, but also, I think, incredibly interesting. And right off the bat, I have to be clear, this is not a simple take a pill and you're cured situation. When scientists have actually given supplements to patients who already have an autoimmune disease, the results have been, well, they've been mixed. There are definitely promising signals, but the findings are often conflicting. So if you look at the trials for rheumatoid arthritis, you can see it's kind of all over the map. Some studies report things like improved pain relief and better disease activity, but then other high-quality trials find no significant effect at all. It really is a very mixed bag. And the picture for lupus is just as complex. Again, you see some studies showing benefits like less fatigue, while other rigorous trials find no significant effect on the major outcomes. This suggests that using vitamin D to treat a disease that's already established is still a really open question. But the story changes when we shift our focus from treatment to prevention. 22%. Just let that sink in for a second. This number comes from a massive, really high-quality study called the VITAL trial, and it is a potential game changer because this study wasn't looking at treatment at all, it was looking at prevention. Here's the bottom line from that massive trial. The people who took vitamin D supplements had a 22% lower risk of developing an autoimmune disease over 5 years compared to those taking a placebo. So to put it simply, using vitamin D to treat someone who's already sick, the jury's still out. But using it to potentially prevent the disease from ever starting, that's where we see a really, really powerful signal. And all of this brings us to one final huge question. We know vitamin D is important for the immune system, but what's the perfect target? The amount you need for healthy bones might be completely different from the optimal level for keeping your immune system in that perfectly balanced tolerogenic state. Answering that question is the next great frontier for researchers, and it just might hold the key to turning the tide against this modern pandemic of autoimmunity.